everyone. I'm Lurch alongside of six-time outdoor national champion Broc Glover, and we know where they are. They are at Supercross Live Facebook page right now, but they don't know where we are. Well, maybe they do. We are at round number 3 of the Monster Energy Supercross here in San Diego, Petco Park, and I don't think it gets better than this. Beautiful day for racing, and man, what a track they've developed.
They have, absolutely. And you know, for me, on top of all that, I'm home. This is hometown for me, and I love being here in San Diego at Petco Park. It's just beautiful facility, and the track looks terrific right now. I can't even believe the weather's perfect, and we should get started on this little track walk here. I think the riders should be coming out pretty soon. Their track walk begins, and I'm sure pretty soon they'll be coming up behind us. But don't forget, questions. You have any questions about the track, we'll answer them on whatever we can. Type them all in there.
And if we don't know the answer, we may lie to you, but we'll get the facts back to you next week when we're back in Anaheim for round number 4.
You may lie. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, and we've got some great stories. We've been talking to the dirt work guys. This start here, we've seen some shorter ones this year. We've seen some longer ones. This one, I think, is around 250 feet to the first, where it starts tapering down in that first turn, and that's where we see a lot of action. We've seen it all the previous weeks here in the 2022 season.
Absolutely. The start is always critical in Supercross, no question about that. And this particular start, the gate line's right up against what would really be the left field home run, right up against the outfield fence there. So heading right now on to a southerly direction right here towards the first corner. And you mentioned the 250 foot till the first corner, and it's about 300 feet to the first obstacle. So a lot of room for the riders to separate themselves. And the dirt here at Petco Park here, I almost said Qualcomm Stadium, but Petco Park, it is a firm dirt, typical of Southern California. But the Dirtworks crew knows how to keep the moisture in it, and they know tonight it's going to be really important to keep that moisture.
Speaking of moisture, look at that right there.
Yeah, you got it.
They have watered it up to help retain some of that. Let's talk about this. With some of the structures that are here, the manager's tower, you spent many a night up in there. Great place to watch some racing, but that's where the real business happens with some of these teams. They're radioing to guys that are up in the on top of the stadium that are filming, and they're getting that information back down to the mechanic, and you've seen some of that stuff happen live.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially if your rider is in the...
Let's keep going through this turn.
If they have, because here comes all those wild riders right now.
It's the only time we're going to beat some of them, just so you know.
We better hurry, grab an extra gear here. We can beat them to the first corner. But the point is that let's say you have one rider, a Honda team, for instance. They have a rider in both races. They can see something that maybe happens in the first qualifying, radio down to their rider for the second qualifying race. And that information is always really critical and important. They also get to see maybe where the best starting place seems to be. Most of them kind of know where they think they want to start, but maybe it's a little different than they expected in the beginning. So coming out of the first corner right here, interesting enough, it's kind of a little bit of a wider, I don't know, the proper line, the racing line would probably be a little wider on the apex here. But when you come out of the first corner for the race, you're going to go right to this lowest, tightest spot. So this first obstacle, this first rhythm section that we come to, the riders are going to be doing a little different line than they would in the racing line on the first lap. They'll be cutting much tighter.
It's almost like a washing machine here. Everything's jumbled around. You don't know who's going to come out clean. And we're going to see the pattern through this rhythm section change throughout the night. Once they get through that first turn, they got a little more open space either in front of them or behind them. And what do you see the section here doing?
Well, what I see most likely going to happen here is the first one, we get a little bump, get your front wheel over it, clear the second one, and this one right here we're looking at here is probably getting the launching pad for a good solid triple, and then maybe use the table that you see in the distance to go all the way into the corner that you see with the netting there. But these guys always amaze me. They mix it up, do more than you think, and they jump farther than you think. Well, and it's nice to be able to have some different obstacles. So as we kind of slip and slide through here, they have put quite a bit of moisture in the ground. We are experiencing typical San Diego beautiful blue skies, but we are
what is the Santa Ana wind that everyone keeps mentioning?
Yeah, the Santa Ana winds are typical of this time of the year. We don't really have any wind down here in downtown San Diego, but I know inland they are experiencing some wind. But more importantly than the wind is the dryness in the air. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Then we're turning into the, it's not quite a true 180 bowl turn, so we could see a couple things happen here.
Yeah, this is an interesting one right here. You have a right-hander too, and you see the catch net. They hope that doesn't have to get used, but it could very well get used here in this situation. The right-hander, the riders will be jumping off of here. Obviously, the brakes on the inside corner, so they'll have to have their feet on the pegs in this corner. So it could get a little bit of rubbing here.
Coming in here, now you guys can see the warning lights right here. Whenever it's an unsafe place, they have a flagger or a potential dangerous situation, you're going to see these. They'll have the ability to go yellow and red. Yellow obviously meaning caution flag, and then if you see the red lights flashing, these guys are wheels on the ground. We've seen it happen in a couple of the races earlier this season where those med flags came out and those red lights were flashing, and that's the rider's job. If he sees any kind of red flags waving or those, that's when they're going to put those wheels on the ground. No passing, just get by the incident as safe as you can. Obviously, our Alpine Star mobile medical team out there and some of the great EMTs. You know, you talked about military appreciation. This is always one of my favorite races to come to. Always go big, especially in such a military town as San Diego.
Well, for me, it's always very special too. I mean, my father was a Navy man, came to San Diego in the Navy, enlisted in San Diego, and he was based here in 1950, the Korean War. So it's always a hometown for me, and also the fact that the military appreciation is always a really big deal. You're going to see a lot of the teams. Some of the teams have some special graphics. I know the Dunlop crew, we have our military outfit on. And in appreciation
you do. I didn't get the memo on that. My dad was 82nd, my uncle was 101st. So all our servicemen and women, thank you so much for everything you do. We're saying thank you big at this event, but we say thank you every single day. So make sure if you guys are in an airport or wherever you see a man or woman in military uniform, make sure you tell them thank you so much for protecting all the freedoms we have. Now the freedom to jump the triple at 64 feet. Now that's all on these guys.
It is. That's a big launch. Every time I see a triple, I just can't believe how easy they make it look. But it is a traditional triple. We call it a stock triple. It's around 64 feet. And the 64 feet, it's kind of a nice for the riders to know that they're used to the difference, the distance that they have to jump when they're riding. So they feel comfortable doing it in the first few laps of practice.
I thought I heard a question. Do we have any questions out there? If you do, make sure that you guys are firing those off. We're going to get to those. Our cameraman doing a great job, and he's going to get those questions to us. One of the questions that I had is, I didn't know how much went into laying out a track. I figured it's a baseball stadium, it's a football stadium. They've got this amount of distance to work with. But you talk to Dirtworks, and there are so many things that even you and I were like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that.
I've been coming to Supercrosses since I was a little kid, and I didn't know some of the things, the parameters that they have in building, and their guidance. I guess they're guidelines. They're not absolute positive things, but in general, you'll always see the starting line near the tunnel. That makes sense. You want to be able to load riders for the next race.
They egress in and out.
Yeah, to be able to get in and out of the stadium without affecting the racing on the track. The other thing that you see often is, in most cases, the finish line, is out in the middle lanes towards the center of the stadium. That way, everybody in the whole stadium and all the seats have an unobstructed view of the finish line. Most finish lines, and not this one, they're proving me wrong here, but most finish lines do head the direction of the tunnel. So when the riders come off, they're immediately out. This one's a real quick basically a 180 corner, and then they're out of there and they're head back to starting line and back down. I mean, you want to do that because you don't want to have to wait another minute for the riders to clear the track, because this track is going to be probably in the low 50-second range, being it's 1,772 feet long. So that's kind of a guesstimate on a lap time, and that's probably going to be pretty close. But there's certain things in the track, and they do have the triples, and they're on opposite sides. So there's certain things that go into almost every track, and it makes for a better show, a tighter show.
And I think we got a question coming in.
We got a couple here. Okay, the first one is, do you know how long the massive whoop section is?
I believe it's 13 whoops. Is that what it is here?
It's the longest one we've had on all season. We will try to get you that information if we run into Dirtworks guy as we're going around. And Adam Cianciarillo was like, boys, this is kind of crazy. But he's got the hurt shoulder, so I'm sure he doesn't want that long whoop section, but it is the longest one that we have seen all season. I follow those guys on Instagram, Dirtworks, and they do some
two riders stuff. I think they're liking it. Probably Malcolm Stewart, number 27 Rockstar Husqvarna in the 450 class, and I'll bet hometown hero Christian Craig on the 28 Yamaha. Monster Energy Yamaha is probably loving it. I don't know that any of those two riders are probably the best in their field getting through the whoops, and I think they love the longer the whoops, the better.
And when you looked at back at last week's race in Oakland, some of the top guys in the 250 class, those guys there, these guys are looking at this and saying it's going to be tough. Now, if you look down this way, you see this nice free path. Those have to be certain regulations as far as getting the Alpine Mobile Medical Unit tractors or the gators by, so those guys can get to the incident. So these cannot be pinched up against the wall. And then you see the bannered off seat. That's for the protection of the crowd. shoot, what was I going to say?
I'm laughing at those bannered off seats because some people that I've heard of in the past actually had their motorcycle go up into the stands and land up in the bleachers.
We got the catch nets.
Yeah. And I don't know anybody that maybe had that happen on my Yamaha. Wait, did I say my Yamaha? Wait, I didn't mean to say that. Yeah,
Broc, we got one for you here.
Okay.
Someone's asking, what do you think the recommended tire pressure will be for today?
Almost everybody there, the Dunlop riders, I mean, not to be bragging, but at Anaheim 1, I think we had 21 of the 22 450 riders on Dunlop. So we do have a good idea what people are running out there. Most of the riders run around 12.5 in the rear, and they want to keep it a little softer in the rear because they don't want the bike bouncing in the whoops. And a lot of them run anywhere from about 13 to 13.5 in the front. There are a few people actually who can go as high as 14 in the front, but it's pretty rare that we see that high. So that's the range, 12.5 rear.
What is the advantage for more tire pressure in the front compared to the rear?
The riders are going so hard nowadays, they don't want the tire to roll, and doing scrubs off of jumps and things, they just feel more comfortable. As a track gets more ruddy, they tend to go up a little bit, maybe a half a pound in the pressure, just to get the tire to stay more rounded and possibly not grab the edges of the ruts.
You can see some of the young kids with the KTM Supercross Challenge riders. It's always a fun part of the night. These guys getting to showcase their skills, and I think the crowd might get just as loud as they do when that 450 champion is named at the end of this one. But these guys doing a great job, boys, girls, in that age range. That it's fun, and I don't think there's a kid out there in the stands that doesn't want to say, "Hey mom, hey dad, what do you say? You gonna sign up next year?"
Yeah, it looks amazing, and also look at them all, and they're all matching Troy Lee Designs gear. It looks really cool, like just a massive team out there. And hats off to the KTM crew for doing the KJSC every year. It's just a fun part of all the shows.
Full factory experience, including autograph sessions in years gone by. We're going to jump back up on here. Since it looks slick, but not as slick as it has been on some other sections. I might have spoke too early as far as that. Now another rhythm section. This one's a long one, baseball stadium, so we're seeing some of the shorter runs. What do you see guys doing here? And obviously it's going to depend on how they run it through qualifying and how they get a feel for it in the race.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's certainly some options. We have a couple of higher jumps and lower jumps. You're going to see a little off rhythm here. Some people may be doing 3-2 into the corner. Some people may be tripling and then singling into the bowl corner. But as you mentioned, though, more importantly, the 180 afterwards, this Dunlop, you see the catch fence, you see the Dunlop cuff blocks. This 180, this is where usually all the action happens. And on top of that, it is the 180 that leads to the finish line. And in that case, if it means winning the race or qualifying for that ninth and final spot, or that fourth spot at the LCQ, all bets are off, man. We got to get in. You got to get in. Up around there, and now we're talking the finish line. We're not going to climb up that one. That one looks a little slick. No.
Slick here today, but always a crowd favorite for that finish line, and that's when we're going to see those transponders go off for the first time. You're going to see how they're lining up. You're going to see the plus and minus of seconds, how they're doing up against their competitors. And one of the interesting things, we talked about tracks and design and all this. Back in the day when they ran laps for their heats, their semis, and the main events, did you know part of the problem is that Dirtworks had to build this track to be somewhere between 48 seconds to a minute in lap time. So you build all this, they go out there in qualifying, and these guys are running a minute 5, minute 6. What they would have to do is they would have to cut part of the track or knock down a sec to get it into that TV slot. So now once they've switched to the timed, it's over when it's over, so they can control that. And that was a great implement that Feld, the AMA, and everybody put into place, so these guys didn't have to design a track that was between 48 and 1 minute. Because, man, that is tough. When you're looking at it on paper, when they're drawing them up in the beginning part of the year. This one was designed by Chili, who is the dirt specialist over there at Red Bull.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so we have some different designers for the tracks, but you talked about making a track a certain distance. It's hard, especially when you get to a stadium that's open. You never know if the weather comes in there. So all of a sudden now you're trying to make 20-lap race fit into a window of a time slot of a television, broadcast, and it really makes it really hard. So that going to the timed main events of 15 minutes for the 250 and 20 minutes for the 450 did help a lot. So behind us here, we went over the jump. We're kind of bypassing a lot of walking on the track, you guys, because it is pretty wet and it's slippery and our feet are already muddy as it is. So sorry about not being able to walk over each obstacle. But as we go over the finish line here in the back, you see here, you come out of the corner here. It's not quite a 180, but you come down, and then here's another obstacle here. It's going to be a big, it's a very steep jump right here. It's hard to tell, but it's going to be a pretty big pop right here heading over the top. And you see the riders, and they're going to go immediately into a left-hander and then head back across for a down and back across the starting line right in front of the starting gate. And so once we get through this slippery, you can see the riders and slipping and sliding trying to do the track walks.
There's Alex Martin just walking up the face of on the right-hand side of your screen. He had a monumental week last time, made his first main event on a 450, so good job to patrol train, so to say.
Yep, that's right. Looking down right here, this is a really short, what we call a short pocket, and you land on this immediately you're turning. This is going to be, I can't imagine we're not going to see a little bit of rubbing here. This is going to be a tight.
And then it's going to be a hard left. We're not going to walk all the way down by that leader light. We're basically shooting across the start straight. And then as soon as they're done with the start straight, it's going to be that hard right-hander back, a little dragon's back, which we're just walking up to now.
Alex, how was it getting on jump off?
Congratulations on last week.
Speaking of the man making the main event here, Alex Martin, how was it making that main event? First 450 main, huh?
Yeah, it was just a relief, honestly. I was like, if I don't make two in a row, this is not a good look.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good, just a relief. Got to give a shout out to Kate Clayson on the podium, calling me an idiot. So
yeah,
I got some redemption there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was good just to make the main, and honestly to be around all of those guys. Like in the 250 class, there's like 5 or 6 good guys, that you're kind of concerned with. Or in the 450 class, it's like, all right, there's 20 dudes.
Yeah. I'm on the end gate, and I'm lined up with a guy who's got a championship under his belt.
Yeah, like I battle. Like, I mean, it sounds really pathetic battling for 16th, 17th, me and Hartraff were the whole main. But I'm like, we actually had a good pace going. You know what I mean?
Hey, right now, I mean, there used to be a top 10 or 12 are going pretty fast. Now it's like the top 18 or 20 are going good. There's no gimme positions in the 450 class anymore. The parity in the sport right now is fantastic. And being a fan of Supercross, any of the fans of Supercross are getting their money's worth right now. So,
yeah.
Quick comments about the track. So the parts you've walked so far. You're about to head up to the whoops, which is going to be a big section.
Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying the fact that we have 5 feet of run into a 100-yard whoop section, so that'll be good. But I mean, other than that, the track actually looks pretty good. Kind of typical San Diego, where it's like really gravelly. You see a lot of little rocks and stuff. So yeah, I think. This is the first round I haven't done press yet, so I like doing press because you kind of get the rhythms and everything figured out. So the anxiety is a little higher when you're walking the track and you haven't done it yet. So we'll be all right though.
All right, we won't hold you up. Thank you for talking with us, and best of luck tonight.
Well, it's funny, you made obviously a little sarcasm there with the short run into the whoops. We're coming up to those right now. And he's talking about one of the fast guys. We see one of the fast guys up there off to our left here talking to his mechanic. You've got number 23 factory Honda, HRC Honda there of Chase Sexton. And he's definitely on everybody's list to be the first to grab his first win here sooner than later. And certainly talented, but he's somebody who can get through the whoops with the best of them.
Absolutely. So we might want to start counting these off. This is one.
Well, you count that one or not?
Sure, we'll count them. I mean, you might as well add a little bit more to it.
Yeah, interesting shot right there. Obviously, it's Chase kind of getting an idea of what the highs and the low parts are. He's getting down. He's not lining up a putt. I know that. I know he likes to golf.
Similar.
Yeah, you gonna plumb bob it too, or no? He's gonna get.
No, it's gonna. I mean, at the end of the day, you're really gonna hit whatever is smooth. So
yeah.
Just go around and we'll call it a gimme.
Yeah.
No. You'll see a lot of guys going around in the practice for sure.
Yeah. So you're just looking for the low line. I mean, you're trying to figure out if there's a high and a low, and also maybe there's just one bump that's higher, but that might set up for the next 2 or 3 after. It might be used to his advantage. So just trying to pick it out. And he knows he's not able to go in the same line, right? You're going to be have to move around.
Especially in the main event, like setting up back here if you want to hit the right side of the loops if they're smoother. So I mean, it's the dominant line is going to be the right to the left to set the corner up, but main event you might be over here where it's a little more smooth. So.
Layout of this track, do you find it to be very raceable? Just through the walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I rode press yesterday, so I think it's going to be fun. I think this is going to be a big key, though. This section right here, Dragon's back to the whoops, you're going to lose basically all your time or gain time here.
Yep.
So, especially in the main event. If you can hit these consistent for however long the lap time is, for assuming it's going to be around 50 seconds.
Yeah.
So probably like 25 laps would be good.
All right, Zim's leaving you in the dust. You better catch up with him. Thanks for
Take care, man. Well, you heard it right there from Chase Sexton. That's about as good of a inside line and commentator we can have on that one. Huh?
That's right.
Lurch and I can only speculate, but it's, you heard it right from the
I'm
horse's
gonna
mouth.
go to the side. I want to see how this one's really deep.
Okay, you stay up here. You stay up here. So from where Chase is to where Broc is, that's about 13 feet. There's about, I would say, about a 3-foot difference from the height to the valley on these. And you know how important it is. That first one's going to set up the suspension so those guys can get that front end light, and then they're going to have to keep, maybe even try to grab a gear to get across these things, because once that front end drops down, you're going to see a little Sea Rider stuff on the front end. So it's going to be interesting for
I
sure.
actually liked that view from up there being way above you like that. I just feel stately being up so high. But yeah, these are nasty.
Come on, do the big skip.
Nasty, man. I can't, no way.
Come on, you got this.
Oh, man.
Let's do it again.
Makes my knee hurt. Oh, my God.
It makes mine hurt, but anything for our friends at Supercross Live
You
Facebook.
got it. So, yeah, these are crazy.
Hey, Broc, I have a question for you here.
Yes, sir.
It seems like the whoops so far have broken down a lot at every race.
Yeah.
What do you expect here?
You know, the dirt here in San Diego has a history of being a little harder. So they have put that's why they were putting so much water on the track early on here. And that's why it was so muddy when we were walking around it. But it won't take long at all and that water will dry up. And I don't think these whoops right here, I'm not expecting them to break down nearly as much, especially as we saw last week in Oakland, which has a more history of a little bit of a gravelly dirt where this is firm SoCal hard pack.
You know, and they're putting water on it so they don't get lose control of the amount of moisture in the dirt, because if they do and it starts hardening up, they're not going to get that water to be able to get into that soil and keep it a great race surface.
Yeah, that's one thing they've done in the last that I've watched through the history of the
I forgot
sport.
to count.
I know. Hey, trust me, it was above how many fingers you have. So
That's right. I wasn't going to take off my shoes and use my toes to count up those wells.
Getting back to what I was saying, one of the things that I think they've done in the history of our sport is really learn to manage the dirt. I mean, these guys are true dirtologists, and they are able to keep the control of the dirt, the moisture in the dirt throughout the night, and make sure that the tracks they don't lose the track, as you said. In the history of like Las Vegas and places like that, in the past years they had lost it, and they got better and better over the years there too. So now they really come down to a science, and they rarely ever lose to where you really see a track get super hard packed. So hats off to the crew.
I think we got maybe time for a question or two if we've got a couple coming across.
Everybody's kind of just giving their picks for the win. Let's hear. I think a good way to end it would be, let's hear what you guys think for the win. Both classes, podiums.
I'm going to go 250s. I'm going to go Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki Joe Shimoda. I'm going to go with him for the win. He's had a couple rough weeks. He fought hard to get up from when he got stuck in the gate at the first one, worked himself up well, had that hard crash, didn't even look like it affected him, got back on the bike and worked up to, I think, 7th or 8th. So I think he's due. I think he's got the speed, but we'll see if he can do it here in San Diego.
Well, I always try to play Switzerland because most of all the top riders use Dunlop, and so I truly don't let myself have a favorite here and there. But in the 250 class, I'm going to have to step out on a limb here, and I'm going to have to say I'd like to see Christian Craig win in his hometown. It's, there's
incredible story behind that guy, from
Yeah,
being a carpenter, getting back into the sport, and now look where he's at.
I used to take his father riding when he was riding YZ80s. I mean, we grew up together. I know, I just like to see him have the thrill and the joy. Those of us have had the pleasure of winning in your hometown. There's nothing like it. So I'd like to see that one happen in the 250 class. In the 450 class, it's a crapshoot. I'd like to see a first-time winner, to be honest with you. And maybe it was the gentleman that we saw spend so much time, he could give us so much of his time and his insight of the whoops there, Chase Sexton. It'd be nice to see a first-time winner.
You look at his game, and it's incredibly strong from the drop of the gate to the finish line. Just a couple mistakes. If you can iron those out, I think we could have.
And I have one thing to say here. There's a chance. We got a little insight of you, my partner in crime here.
You do.
I had no idea all the skills that you have, but it might.
You're not talking plumbing, cooking.
No, I didn't. Yeah, most people don't know you're actually a real plumber, and besides, golden pipes on you got golden pipes on the voice, but
golden boy, golden pipes. I mean,
I didn't realize
the golden crew.
I didn't realize the singing skills that this man have, and I might have a little tiny tidbit on. I'll be posting on.
Make sure you look for it.
At MX Golden Boy, just might have a little preview of my man's singing skills here.
I got another question here from Chris Brewer. He says, hey Broc, for this track layout, do you think it would be better to set the bike up for the whoops instead of the rest of the track?
Well, you heard Chase Sexton, and he did say that all the time in his mind was going to be won and lost in the whoops? And so there's a great question, Chris, and the answer is, if it's something you can lean towards that way, absolutely. You're going to have to make your bike get through the whoops. That's probably the most critical part where you're going to gain time if you do it properly. So I would lean towards setup there and worry about if I can turn the bike later.
Ron Chun says the track seemed more difficult this season. What's with the change?
Boy, that's a good question too. I even have to bring that up with the Dirtworks crew, but you are absolutely right. That Anaheim track was about as difficult as ever. There was a little bit of, a few people being a little critical of that you don't want to start off the very first round when these guys are just getting back into the swing of things with the most difficult track we've seen in a long time. I would like to see it. We'll have to see how this one plays out. Oakland seemed very, not crazy hard, had a hard set of whoops, but we'll see how Becco plays out.
Absolutely. These guys never have redesigned a track. They might use an implement from another track through years gone by. The stacks of the blueprints that they have from the track, and they might say, oh, you know what, we really like the finish line and the finish line setup, and then they'll build the track around that. It goes through an incredible process through FEL, the AMA, to get approvals until they finally get that stamp of approval, and that leads us here. You guys have been great. Make sure that once this goes out on Instagram stories, make sure you guys share it, and we'll get everybody here. We'll be back next week when we're heading back to Anaheim, the second round in Anaheim, and it's going to be a good one, but man, we got to get through this one first. Until then, Broc and I will catch you later.